Hey everybody, welcome to the Bold Lawyers Show. I'm JD Hoovener, your host. I'm with Matt Kolseth, my co-host. Matt, good afternoon.
Howdy, hey, JD.
Howdy, hey. Hey man, this is our second podcast. I'm so happy to have you
I'm excited to be here with you.
In the box. We're not necessarily talking like we are. No, tomorrow we got our show, the Bold Inventor Show. This is for you lawyers. This is for you attorneys out there with a passion for justice, for finding the right thing for everyone, the access to education, getting attorneys information that they might not know about. Anyway, I'm really fascinated with where this show is going to go. We have a guest today. We're going to bring him on shortly. But Matt, I want to get your take. What excites you about talking about the law?
So as much as I love the law, I think of at least my practice is more focused on the business of law, and it's a vehicle for me to have really meaningful connections with clients. That sounds kind of corny, but if I was just in a room doing trademark law all day, I would be bored out of my mind. So it's the client interactions that I prioritize that I guess keep me coming back for more and make me satisfied with this career choice.
Yeah, for sure. I think I felt an alignment right away with my clients, and I'm sure you feel the same way, is as a business owner lawyer.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. Okay.
Right.
It's legal services. You're selling legal services. You're right there with your clients, and you can experience and sort of, empathize with where they're at in trying to start things up, oftentimes on their own. And so you feel alone, kind of like they do sometimes. And it's that, like you said, that connection with clients at a whole new level. Whereas you might not have that at a bigger firm or somewhere where it's
I did some externships and some like temp work at some of the larger firms, like right out of law school, and they walk you over to your desk, they put you down, they put work in front of you and say, do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't know where that work comes from or anything like that until you own your own firm, and then you get to experience the whole breadth of being a business owner is, and being a solo attorney or small business attorney really feels like, right? It's a lot more than you think it is. It's not just it's just not pizza and rainbows. It's a lot of work, right? To find clients and bill clients and retain employees, and it's a lot.
Totally, man. Well, I want to get to our topic for today, which is litigation practice. This is our series we're going to be doing on litigation. You and I both run transactional practices. We run, hey, it's easy, not necessarily easy. It's just sometimes simple. In other words, there is an end, there's a beginning and an end.
Yeah. My practice is definitely, as a trademark attorney, is very transactional. However, we do at Bold IP do a fair amount of trademark trial and appeal board litigation, which is, I'd say very, very relaxed litigation. And for the most part, we get to be the subject matter experts, because most of the time that, opposing parties are represented by counsel who doesn't know it, the difference between a patent, trademark, and copyright. So it makes things a little easier.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, actually, because we say, hey, we don't do litigation, but the truth is we actually do. We do that by either writing bulletproof patents that aren't going to be subject to an issue, or we help our clients navigate through to settle before it gets to litigation.
We don't appear in court.
Exactly.
And stand and deliver, may it please your honor, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Let's speak with someone who does and runs a practice of his own. We've got attorney, counselor Parag Amin. Am I saying that right, Parag?
Almost. It's Amin. Great to be here. Thanks, JD.
So good to have you. I mean,
look at him. He looks excited to be here. He's got all his hair. No stress over there, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. I've got transactional hair. So
we still have our hair too.
Right.
For the time being.
Absolutely. We have to be grateful for that. Well, so you and I actually are in a mastermind. We've got to know each other a little bit. Obviously, I'm still working on your last name. I'm sorry about that. But man, you're looking sharp, and maybe that's that right there is indicative of the different types of practice, right? Matt's got a hoodie and a t-shirt. Pull it out. I just before the show put a button on. You've got. I don't think you just do that together. You dress the part. Did you go to court today? Do you plan to go to court later on? Or is that just how you normally dress?
Yeah, great question. It's funny today. I had a few meetings, so I had to dress like this. Yesterday, I had court, but I was actually going to the gym right afterwards. So I posted this Instagram video. It's like me with my suit up on top. I make a quick appearance in the case. All I've got to do, I'm first up. And when you're first up, there's a lot of pressure because you don't want to make the judge mad. You want to handle things well. Everybody who's going to be appearing that day is already there. And so I just had to give him a quick status update, told him everything I needed to in about a minute or two. And I just said, Your Honor, we're in the process of settling the case. We've settled for the policy limits here. I'm going to be dismissing this case and getting it off your docket in the next 30 to 45 days. He looks up, he's looking down as I'm telling him that. And he looks up and he smiles. He's like, Mr. Amin, that's an excellent way to start out the day. And that was a nice little pick me up. And what he couldn't see was I had my gym pants and my gym shoes on underneath. So I was like ready to roll. So right after the court appearance, I was able to change and roll out. So it really depends on the day.
Like zip off, slacks.
Like slap on. Yeah. Like snap off, snap on type thing.
Like a fake suit t-shirt, Yeah.
I am making notes, I do invent from time to time.
JD and I think, even though I'm wearing a sweatshirt today and JD's got a t-shirt on, I think we're both wearing pants today, right?
No, sir. No. One of those is like, it's warm. In fact, balmy.
I will admit to wearing pajamas, from the waist down on the client collar too at some point in my career.
There you go. It happens. All right, gentlemen, we're going to get back to our topic here. We're talking about litigation, and we're going to move on from apparel, although that may come back in. Parag, I want to have you kind of roll us back a little bit. Tell us about your practice. You are the owner and the founder. What got you on this journey of I love founder stories. Boil us down. Give us a couple good minutes of founder story, why you open up your own practice.
Yeah, so my parents are Indian immigrants. So my parents immigrated here from India. And when I was a kid, my parents had taken their life savings and put it into this convenience store in Florida. And what they did is they bought the entity that owned the store from the guy before them. And so they are working like 70, 80 hours a week. I barely saw them during this time. And they, after working tirelessly for like 2 years, end up getting the taxing authority in Florida knocking on their door. And they tell my dad that he owes over a couple $100,000 in unpaid sales taxes. And my dad tells him, hey, this can't be possible because I haven't even made that kind of money. How can I owe you guys hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales taxes? So it turns out that the guy before him who owned the entity hadn't paid his sales taxes. And so what they did is they gave him the ultimatum of you either pay these sales taxes or you've got to shut down the business. And so unfortunately, my dad ended up shutting down the business and ended up getting a W-2 job that he works at to this day. And so that had a pretty profound impact on me when I was younger. I didn't want that to happen to somebody I loved. Again, I didn't want that to happen to friends. I didn't want it to happen to family, and I didn't want it to happen to other people. So I decided at a pretty young age that I'd go on to law school. And so I went to school at USC, graduated, and eventually started my own practice, which was always kind of my vision and dream. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that. And so I started my practice as more of a transactional practice with a little bit of litigation. And it's slowly transformed into primarily a business and partnership disputes business litigation practice.
Man, that is super touching. It's amazing.
That's a good story. That's way better than my story. JD, is that better than your story?
Way better. In fact, that's the second time I've heard it, and it's so good. Parag, dude, like you've done it. So tell us. Okay, you open up your practice. What type of transactional work did you do right away when you opened it up?
So when I started, before I started in law school, I was a part of the USC Small Business Clinic. And what they do is they provide essentially free legal help to businesses in or around the Southern California area who are looking to start their business, because many times a lot of people feel like legal is too cost prohibitive. And so it's a nice opportunity to be able to give back. And so since I was a part of the small business clinic, I got to help form entities, draft some basic contracts, that kind of thing, and got some repetitions under Professor Michael Chaslow over there, who's amazing. And so I had that kind of routine and practice. And so what I started doing was drafting relatively basic partnership agreements, forming entities, that kind of thing.
Got it. And was it sort of a natural course where some of these clients you had helped set up their companies for ended up in litigation, and that's how you grew litigation practice?
Yeah, that's right. And, I didn't always anticipate on going into litigation, but I had a mentor tell me that if you wanted to be kind of completely rounded, she was in-house at a studio, and she said, eventually if you want to go in-house, and that's kind of what I had anticipated at some point I might go in-house. She said, if you want to do that, then get some litigation practice so you're a little bit more rounded. And just the necessity, as you guys know, of running a business that you've just started, sometimes you end up taking on things because in a way you have to, and you've got to figure it out along the way, make sure you don't drop the ball because somebody trusted you to carry that ball for them, and you've just got to suck it up and learn how to carry it and run with it. And so that's kind of what happened is I had clients, like you said, JD, they kind of just fell into litigation and they asked me if I could handle it. And then eventually I just started getting more and more of those calls. And I found that I actually liked it more. I found that I liked kind of that competitive aspect to litigation. I liked thinking through some of the issues. And so that slowly just took up more and more of the practice until eventually I decided that transactional work just isn't for me.
Matt, you were smiling pretty hard talking about
I
doing everything. Yeah.
No, it's really interesting hearing someone who like has the chops and like the mental attitude for litigation, right? Because I don't have it. And that was made very clear to me in law school, right? I went through some like litigation courses and stuff like that. And I remember I was doing like a cross-examination of like a, pretend witness or something like that. And like, I just stumbled into like this like tunnel vision cross-examination where like I went way too far with the questions. And I remember my like, the adjunct professor afterwards, she looks at me and she goes, "I don't think you're going to be a litigator." And I said, "Okay, I'm good with that. I'll take the B."
Well, your career as an attorney isn't over, Matt. I wouldn't write
yes.
lately.
Well,
and and neither will I for me. I mean, and so I like what your advisor was saying. It's something I think about. Hey, someday maybe I could do litigation. What would that mean?
You absolutely could. You've got it.
Okay. So tell me.
JD's a shark. I don't know if you can tell, but
tell me what it. Yeah, I'm getting the fin going better.
Yeah, this is a podcast, right? No one can see your hair.
This will be. Yeah, most of our viewers are on the podcast.
Uh-huh.
What am I saying here? Okay, let's talk about what is litigation. What is it that you and I, Matt, are currently afraid of? What are some of the most nerve-wracking things that you've done, if there are any? Would you say, Parag? I mean, walk us through. Maybe there are other listeners here that do transactional work. What were some of the scariest parts as you took on your first litigation case? Let's just say it. As you first started doing that and representing a client before a judge, what are some initial things that you're thinking about?
Yeah. So, the first and foremost thing is there's so much procedure and so much in terms of deadlines that you're not going to have learned in law school, because law school teaches you law school, and then you've got a bar prep course that you've got to take to be able to learn how to pass the exam to actually become a practicing lawyer. And then you've got with litigation, you've got all the litigation specific deadlines. And then you've just got a bunch of litigation specific procedure too. Like, for example, I remember the first time I went into court, I walk in behind a number of lawyers. Now I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I just watch what everybody else is doing, and everybody goes and checks in with the clerk. They give her a business card. So at that point, I didn't even have a business card. So, then I get up to the front of the line. I'm like, so I forgot my business cards. I don't have them on me. And she's like, she just kind of like gives out like a heavy sigh and shakes her head like this rookie. And she gives me like this like pad. It's like the pad of shame where you just write down your name, your address,
For all the
and like you just like hand it to them without making eye contact because you're so embarrassed. You just look down. You're like, here. So I filled it in, and then I just kind of waited. And luckily, I wasn't first up, so I got to just kind of see how some of the lawyers were handling things, and I was like, okay, And then you kind of, you stutter a lot, you say a lot of ums, uhs, but then you get used to it, and eventually it just kind of flows. You get very used to the procedure. You get used to arguing in court. You get a sense of what some judges like versus others, what kind of arguments they appreciate. Some are very much fairness oriented, where others are very much about procedure. If you can win on both, great. But some have more of a slant on certain things than others, and you get to learn some of those habits and preferences of the judges as you go in front of them. So just like anything, I think the biggest thing is repetition and just being comfortable enough with yourself, or getting comfortable enough with yourself that you're okay looking a little embarrassed, like I felt walking in using that pad of shame and having to
so like
to
one,
down.
I wouldn't even know where to sit in a courtroom. But so you walk in your first case, right? Like, do you have anyone there with you? Like, do you have a mentor, or are you just walking in like?
You have your client with you.
So luckily on that one, my client didn't have to see me bumble through it because it was like it was a staff conference that the client didn't have to attend.
Matt and I are on the same page. Like, we think of court what we see on TV and in movies. Like that. Hey, that's all I know. So okay. Anyway, I don't know where this conversation is going. I don't want to draw it out, but what you're saying so far is pretty cool, pretty colorful.
Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to do that. I mean, that's what I think about litigation, and it scares me, right? Even when I did like TTAB litigation, or when I do TTAB litigation, when I see something new, it's like, I don't know this, I don't understand this. Like, I've never had to answer this type of interrogatory before, like But for you just walk into the courtroom and be like, oh, I guess I'll figure it out.
That's great. And that is, a lot of it is that, and I think there's a certain allure to that. Is 2 days aren't really the same, and I don't look at the same lawsuit, type like a cookie cutter type thing multiple times. Some people can really focus on things like that and do well with it and thrive with it, which I am envious of because I just can't. I'm just not wired that way. So I think it's just one of those where if you're wired that way and you can do similar types of things over and over, you can perfect that specific thing. It's like, for example, with trademarks and patents, I know I'm not wired for it. I could sit for the patent bar, try to pass it, but I just know I'm not built for it.
Wow. You could do it too. I'm going to encourage, if you wanted to do it, you could do it, Parag. So I'm going to shift us into another gear. I mean, one of the reasons I had envisioned for this show is to talk with law firm owners. And so let's talk about that transition from, hey, you're doing it on your own, you're doing everything, you're taking those first few steps on your own, to getting to the point to where you're actually ready to hire your first associate and have an associate do that on behalf of you in your name, right? In the name of your firm. Walk our listeners, walk us through, honestly, what it was like hiring your first litigation associate.
It's scary. You've cut your teeth, you've done things a very specific way, and generally speaking, your first associate is going to be one of your most expensive hires at a law firm. So you've got a lot riding on it financially, you've got a lot riding on it mentally, and you're hoping that they're going to be able to do it correctly. So I would say take your time in finding someone, take your time in hiring. Slow to hire, fast to fire is a good phrase I've heard. If you're going to fire somebody, fire them correctly. Obviously, there's a lot of employment laws that you want to be careful of.
Make sure nice save. Very good, counselor.
Asterisk, disclosure.
So that's okay. Speed isn't one of them. So feel free to fire them and fire them fast, but just do it the right way, right? Because what you don't want, and this is a mistake I've made, is just assuming that people are naturally going to get better, even though they're not showing signs or initiative of getting better. And you kind of play that hope in prayer game that, oh, you know what, maybe hopefully they'll just get better. So that way I'm not in the awkward situation of having to fire this person. And I'm not in the awkward situation of now I've put so much money into this person that, like I'm just going to start from scratch. I'm going to lose all of that money and have to start over.
Okay, and I'm just going to keep firing with questions. I think this is a wonderful subject. I want to go to the hiring part. In general, I assume you basically work while you're solo until you get so busy you're just fumbling, you can't keep it together, and you find you just carve away to interview, do the best you can, and bring someone on. What we found in our practice is training. It's like a brand new associate, super challenging. And so what we've gone toward is hiring those that have a couple years experience you can just plug in. Did you go through did you try both of those options as you're kind of in that stage of hiring your first associate? Walk us through that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did go through that, and I made the decision that a lot of people make, which is hiring the cheaper young associate right out of law school, hoping you can train them without realizing how much training that takes. And to be clear, I'm all for training associates. I'm all for lawyers, young lawyers especially, getting more experience, because that's how you go from inexperience to experience. And having that holding hand to help guide you along the way. I think mentorship is incredibly important. And I've been lucky to have a lot of mentors along the way. However, when you're drowning in work and you're really busy and you're already behind, that's not the time to hire somebody to then try to train, because you're going to fall further behind. And so it really is a disservice to yourself and a disservice to the person that you end up hiring, because they're hoping for the type of training that you're just not realistically in a position to be able to provide. So I would say, look ahead, hire before you need the person, and hire somebody more experienced generally than you think you're gonna need.
Okay. And I'm gonna start asking a little more specific questions here. When you made your first hire, walk us back. How long ago was it? How did you compensate them?
Yeah, I think it was, I did a solo practice for my first 5 years or so.
Okay.
And then I hired my first associate who was just graduating from law school and had passed the bar exam, or was waiting rather on bar results, and then passed the bar exam. So went from a law clerk to a lawyer.
Right. Got it. And are we talking close to minimum wage? Are we talking 50 grand a year? Were there commission options? If you're willing to share, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. Yeah. I think it was like $75,000 or so a year.
Wow, not bad.
So it wasn't so like the reality of it is, I think that paying an associate coming out right out of law school, like minimum wage, or then there's firms that do it, but I am personally against that, because the reality of it is, that person has their own expenses. They probably have law school debt, that kind of thing. And so I didn't want somebody hiring me right out of law school with that kind of pay. So I made it a point to also pay a little bit more. Now, of course, I couldn't pay anywhere near what these large law firms were paying. But I also didn't want to go at the very low end of the scale either. So it was like somewhere in between the mid, or like the mid low, if you will, to the end of things.
Right. I mean, our practices are so different, and I got a million questions, and maybe others do that are listening in. Billable hour. Is that how you started? Is that how your associate was billing? Did you have any trouble with that? Walk us through how you were able to get up to speed with your first associate.
Yeah. So my first associates, at that point, when I hired my first associates, we had a number of contingency fee cases. So I had them work more on the contingency fee cases than the hourly cases, because I felt that the hourly cases, I should still be handling those, because clients are being charged hundreds of dollars an hour, and things should be done correctly and efficiently, rather than having a brand new associate learning on their dime. So what I tried to do was push out the contingency work to the associate to handle, and I was just doing the hourly work.
Was that a good idea? Did that turn out all right?
It didn't turn out financially profitable for me. And I take responsibility for that. I think that there is a component of management skills, managerial skills, key performance indicators, holding people accountable, that I just hadn't learned. And so I just assumed that the associate would be working the way I would be working, if I was working for somebody else without the same kinds of oversight that I should have had. So I would say that if you're looking to hire your first associate, make sure you've got some key performance indicators, some key metrics as to what they should be doing in terms of X number of, whether it's depositions a week, if it's litigation, or X number of patents or trademark applications, something that tells you that they're on track rather than, hey, they were at the office. And that was my metric. As ridiculous as that sounds. Hey, they were at the office.
On time. Like, were they?
They looked like they were working. Right.
Okay. And like you said, they're on the contingency matter, so you really weren't tracking their hours. If you're being, is that right? At least initially.
That's right.
Got it. Well, lay those on us. Well, what are some of the KPIs that you've over the years come to find as maybe the top 3, if you're willing to share, things that you currently measure?
Yeah. So productivity is key. So everybody tracks their time now. Everybody tracks their time. Paralegals, hourly associates, lawyers that are still helping with contingency fee cases. And I want to see what they're spending their time on and how it's accounted for. So then when I see discrepancies, like, for example, drafting an answer took 10 hours when it should take 2 or 3 hours, for example, at most, I'm wondering where that delta was. And it could be that the person just put in a time and they just forgot to put it in and they kind of backtracked. And that happens sometimes, but that's a practice that we don't allow. So I realized that, hey, if this is happening, we need to course correct immediately. Or it could be that the person was just inefficient and didn't realize that we either had a template they could use, or they were just doing things too painfully slow without being efficient about what resources are available for them to be able to do it. So the number of hours, I would say, is key, how they're spending their time. And if it's, for example, specific, like contingency fee based work, how much money are they actually bringing in? How much are they actually generating in contingency fees compared to what we're paying them in terms of salary and benefits? Got it.
That's good. Awesome. Yeah, we have. I'll just be candid. We've gone away from time tracking. You know, the work we do at Bold on the patent side is flat fee. Okay, and we compensate our attorneys on commission. It's maybe not the right word, but it's a percentage of revenue. And so the attorneys can be as busy as they want to be. I structured it that way because I found out that there are a lot of attorneys that don't necessarily want to be full time, but they've got great skill set. 3 of our 5 attorneys at one point were stay-at-home moms, for example, and wanted to stay fresh, stay 20, 30 hours a week, 15 hours a week, and be able to kind of moderate how much their workload was at. And we do have some full-time attorneys as well. But tracking time isn't that important. It didn't seem important, but I think it may still be core because it's good to know, hey, how long did you spend on that patent search? Average, if we had data, is 4 or 5 hours and you spent 6 or 7. Maybe that's an area where you can improve, right? Because the faster they can get through it, the more they can make, the more deals, cases they can take on. So I think time tracking is a really big one. Would be beneficial there. Matt, are you doing some of that time tracking on some of your own work?
0.
Okay.
Nope. So we're on the trademark side, we're flat fee as well, right? So efficiency is key, and we're priced at I think a very well positioned point in the marketplace where we can still put in the good amount of hours needed for the research and the opinions and the application work, but we're not needlessly twiddling our thumbs too.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you get a sense for what a client's going to need when you're doing your client consultation, right? This is going to be a client that's going to be extra time consuming, or this is a client that's going to be a really quick matter.
Right. But, yeah. Well, I think it's something that I took a huge note on. Parag, anything you want to mention here in the last couple minutes of our show? Maybe ask us a question or two before we wrap up. Anything else you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So JD, you've got a number of people who work for you. And candidly, I think that one of the hardest parts of having your own business is learning the people aspect of things. You've got a number of different personalities who work in different manners, who are encouraged or motivated by different things. How do you manage your team, especially if they're not necessarily performing the way you'd like them to?
Be quiet.
I was just gonna say like one word. Megan.
I don't. I only know this guy, Matt. I mean, it's a little embarrassing, honestly, now. Megan, so having a chief operating officer, having someone who's even non-legal background, that is a people person, a connector, someone who's understands, like you said, that softer side, that motivations, what inspires them, what type of cases they want, when are they having a bad day, how does that work? Having someone like that on your team is incredible, and she has been that for our firm and for me. So that is my answer.
Megan.
Yeah. So get yourself a Megan. I mean, obviously, it doesn't have to be a female, or it could be a male as well. It could be anything. Office manager. She's our CEO now. She's been promoted to run the whole thing. So yeah. Anyway, that answers that.
Okay. Can I ask Matt a question? Or do we still have time?
We can go over a little bit. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So Matt, if you had to pick 3 things that you would kind of attribute your success to, 3 habits that have been really good for you, what would you pick? What 3?
Yeah, good question, right? So I have a habit of always investing in the best technology possible to make my my work more efficient. So I'd say technology. I really value structure in my client contact, in my client workflow process, right? So from onboarding a client to the initial consultation to the follow-up email, I mean, a lot of that in my world is workflowed and automated, right? So as to not miss any dates with the client. Yeah, those 2 are really important to me. And then just keeping in touch with clients, trying to have touch points along the process with active clients of the firm. That's important. And again, that goes back to investing in software and investing in the time it takes to do that.
Love that.
Awesome. Well, half hour is come and gone. End of our show here. Parag, thank you for coming on and being.
Yeah, it was great having you
on the show.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. We'll be here every week, Tuesday at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 on East Coast. We're going to be welcoming any live questions. We didn't get any today, but I think we were pretty action-packed. So if you missed us live and you're watching this after the fact, we will be here next week, Tuesday. Look, it's the 4th of July. I remember looking at the calendar. So we actually are going to skip due to the federal holiday. So we'll be 2 weeks out. But for myself, for Matt and Parag, we wish you guys a wonderful day, and we'll be here next week. Bye-bye.